Catch the Moon by Judith Ortiz Cofer, Part 2. Luis just stared at his father like he was crazy, but he didn't say anything, because the girl was smiling at him with a funny expression on her face. Maybe she thought he had X-ray eyes like Superman, or maybe she was mocking him. "Please call me Naomi, Senor Cintron. You know my mother. She is the director of the funeral home." Mr. Cintron seemed surprised at first. He prided himself on having a great memory. Then his friendly expression changed to one of sadness, as he recalled the day of his wife's burial. Naomi did not finish her sentence. She reached over and placed her hand on Mr. Cintron's arm for a moment. Then she said adios softly, and got it in her shiny white car. She waved to them as she left, and her gold bracelets flashing in the sun nearly blinded Luis. Mr. Cintron shook his head. "How about that?" he said as to himself. "They are the Dominican owners of Ramirez Funeral Home, and with a sigh, she seems like such a nice young woman. Reminds me of your mother when she was her age." Hearing the funeral parlor's name, Luis remembered, too, the day his mother died. He had been in her room at the hospital while his father had gone for coffee. The alarm had gone off on her monitor, and nurses had come running in, pushing him outside. After that, all he recalled was the anger that had made him punch a hole in his bedroom wall, and afterward he had refused to talk to anyone at the funeral. Strange, he did see a black girl there who didn't try like the others to talk to him, but actually ignored him as she escorted family members to the viewing room and brought flowers in. Could it be that skinny girl in a frilly white dress had been Naomi? She didn't act like she had recognized him today, though. Or maybe she thought that he was a jerk. Luis grabbed the drawing from his father. The old man looked like he wanted to walk down memory lane, but Luis was in no mood to listen to the old stories about his falling in love on a tropical island. The world they lived in before he was born wasn't his world. No beaches and palm trees here, only junk as far as he could see. He climbed back up his hill and studied Naomi's sketch. It had obviously been done very carefully. It was signed Naomi Ramirez in the lower right-hand corner. He memorized the telephone number. Luis washed hubcaps all day until his hands were red and raw, but he did not come across the small silver bowl that would fit the VW. After work, he took a few practice frisbee shots across the yard before showing his father what he had accomplished. Rows and rows of shiny rings drying in the sun. His father nodded and showed him the bump on his temple where one of Luis's flying saucers had gotten him. "Practice makes perfect, you know. Next time you'll probably decapitate me." Luis heard him struggle with the word decapitate, which Mr. Cintron pronounced the syllables. Showing off his big vocabulary again, Luis thought. He looked closely at the bump, though. He felt bad about it. "They look good, hijo." Mr. Cintron made a sweeping gesture with his arms over the yard. "You know, all this will have to be classified. My dream is to have all the parts divided by the year, make of car and condition. Maybe now that you are here to help me, this will happen. Pop." Luis put his hand on his father's shoulder. They were the same height and build, about 5'6" and muscular. "The judge said 6 months of free labor for you, not life, okay?" Mr. Cintron nodded, looking distracted. It was then that Luis suddenly noticed how gray his hair had turned. It used to be shiny black like his own, and that there were deep lines in his face. His father had turned into an old man, and he hadn't even noticed. "Son, you must follow the judge's instructions. Like she said, next time you get in trouble, she's going to treat you like an adult, and I think you know what that means. Hard time, no breaks." Yeah. That's what I'm doing, right? Working my hands to the bone instead of enjoying my summer. But listen, she didn't put me under house arrest, right? I'm going out tonight. Home by 10. She did say something about a curfew." Mr. Cintron had stopped smiling and was looking upset. It had always been hard for them to talk more than a minute or two before his father got offended at something Luis said, or at his sarcastic tone. He was always doing something wrong. Luis threw the rag down on the table and went to sit in his father's ancient Buick, which was in mint condition. They drove him home in silence. After sitting down at the kitchen table with his father to eat a pizza they had picked up on the way home, Luis asked to borrow the car. He didn't get an answer then, just a look that meant, "Don't bother me right now." Before bringing up the subject again, Luis put some ice and cubes in a baggie and handed it to Mr. Cintron, who made the little bump on his head worse by rubbing it. It had "guilty" written on it, Luis thought. This is the end to Catch the Moon Part 2.